early morning here in summer in Brighton, here in the UK, and thoughts turn again to the month I'll be spending at the Edinburgh Fringe in August, and thoughts also turning towards the inbox, but also the inbox that begins right on the day I arrive in Edinburgh, which is my hand receiving flyers from people and starting to notice flyers on tables in every venue. And also a workshop that we run every year at FringeReview, right at the start of the Fringe in Edinburgh, called How to Hit the Ground Running. And it's there that I guess good and bad things happen in relation to flyering and flyers. And we ask people that come to that workshop to bring their flyers with them. And the bad news can be, and it's all happened, I promise you, over the years, is realising that there's incorrect information on flyers, where 5,000 to 10,000 have already been printed. In one case it was the wrong time, in another case it was the wrong date. And also some of the basics around good flyering and good flyers that have either been ignored, not known, or just kind of neglected. And I'm going to run through those now, and so some of this is basic and some of it is a little bit different too. But let's start with some of the basics, and let's start maybe with the bad news. So beyond the bad news of actually the wrong information, we've got the bad news of little or no information in some cases, and I'm literally talking about an image on a flyer, no description whatsoever of the show, the dates, edfringe.com booking link, and no other links to find further information. In lots and lots of cases, no QR codes. And if you think that QR codes were on the way out a few years ago, and a lot of people predicted it, they are now one of the main currencies of linking to information on websites and also on flyers and posters. So they're missing. What's also missing, not just a description of the show, is extra information on the other side of the flyer, and people will take flyers and turn them over to see more information, and they just see exactly the same flyer, just that's been copied on the other side. And you might think there's an advantage that whatever side you're looking at, that's got all the information you need because it's on the other side, but it's a real lost opportunity. When someone takes a flyer, they turn it over thinking that beyond the image and the dates of the show and a QR code maybe on the front or the back, when they turn it over they're certainly going to get more info and links to further information, and on lots of flyers that's missing. Another one is that it simply hasn't been checked for professionalism and quality, and so they look very homemade. And printers will ask you to send images, but not all of them do take the time to say this isn't clear enough. And we end up with very blurred images, text that's hard to read, text that hasn't been checked, so it's kind of can be almost white text on light blue or yellow, and you're squinting to read it, text that's too small, text that's in a font that's difficult to read, all kinds of mixed different texts, fonts which just don't go together, even though the amateur designer often thinks that they've created a great flyer, often with nods of heads from family and friends who don't know either, and what comes up is a very shoddy looking flyer. And this is a professional Fringe. And if you would like to sell tickets, people are judging your flyers as the first judgment around the professionalism and whether they're going to get value for money in coming to see your show. Now that doesn't mean it can't be quirky, it can't be wild and wonderful and innovative as a flyer, but you need to know what you're doing to do that. Now I think what happens up in Edinburgh by then is it's obviously too late and you've got all these flyers, but absolutely we had several shows almost each time who take the advice that they get and bite the bullet, squeeze the budget and go and get those flyers redone quickly, and it's made a difference. That's what's got the reviewers in. Even a week or two into the Fringe, they sell more tickets because they've got better flyers. So all the basics around clarity, readability, using both sides of your flyer, and making sure there's enough information and links to further information. Now, perhaps the last basic is that the link is to get tickets, and quite often what we have is a link just to the edfringe.com website or to your own Instagram that simply then you have to click further, and we should literally only need to click once to get through to wherever we need to book tickets. So we don't just want a link or a QR code that's going to take you to the front page of your website. It should link to how to get tickets. Now you might have two QR codes, which is a bit complicated, but the one on the front needs to be to book tickets, but you might want to have on the back, have a look at some of our rehearsal shots and a very small QR code on the back. But too much information is never a good thing on flyers. Assume people don't have time, they're going to look at them, and within that first second or two, they're going to decide from the image whether this is something they want to know more about. They'll decide from the title as well. Now, if you're in a venue that's hard to find, use the back of your flyer for a little map. Mention what buses get to your venue slightly out of town very easily, what street it's on, how to get to it. A tiny map can make all the difference too. Now, what we can now do is look a bit further and slightly more radical into flyering. So the comments I've made is that first image, and I call this flyer congruence, needs to be replicated on other forms of communication. So if we do come to your show in other ways, it could be we see a poster, it could be it's the advert in your Fringe program, the image I'm in the listing, if it could be that they come across you in images on your TikTok and other social media. Image congruence is that we start to remember the image the more we see it, and if you change the image too much, then we are not associating each image with the same show. And again, with people in info and image overload, they simply won't get the impression that your show has impressed upon their memory. Now, I'm not a big fan of pushing people through that. It's simply that congruence creates a genuine wish for you to be recognized. And so don't do a radically different flyer from the other images you've got listed. And I would still say, even if you change the image a bit, it ought to be congruent to what was in the Fringe program and what is on the main Fringe website and your venue websites. Now, it can often be that when you were asked to send your image months before, that was the one you happen to have to hand, and you've got better images now. And I think that's okay, but you can get that image congruence by kind of starting a fresh page, and from, say, the middle of July, make sure that the images you're now using have recognizability across different media. And when then somebody takes a flyer, they might say, I already recognize this. And that gives you the open opportunity to tell them a bit about the show, to say you're the director, one of the performers, and so on. So the flyers then need to have a certain size. I'm making it clear they need to be on both sides. We do not want white on the back of the flyer, and we do not want just the flyer repeated, like double-sided with exactly the same information. So the question about how big should it be, of course it shouldn't be A4, and of course it shouldn't be tiny. Some people do use things like business cards, and I would say that's okay if you want to put them in little business card sizes. That's quite easy to put in the wallet, but there's a whole load of design about having that still readable. We can't squint at the website information and so on, and the dates and the times. So what I've seen with good little glossy cards, which literally people might be more likely to take and put them in their wallet, is it's the QR code that is very prominent as well. So we just kind of want image, maybe one sentence on the back, and maybe that QR code and the show details. But the most popular will be A5, and that flyer size works pretty well. It's big enough to be able to read all the information. A6 has been used too, but I would say that's only if it's going to be very simple and people will know this is an improv show, what it is really, really quickly, and the image says it all. Otherwise, A5 tends to work well. So A4 is too big. But you will see a lot of card-based flyers that are A6, and that's when you really need to test out versions of that on friends, family, and say, can you read this? What can't you see? And just make sure it's all very accessible. But the key thing here still, a bit like with a press release, is the image says it all. The image doesn't need to have people squinting, what the hell is that about? It kind of needs to give away what this show is about. You absolutely need to say what the genre is. If there's any previous or recent reviews, pick one or two of them, and don't just put 5 stars all over it. But a pull quote is really, really key. If it's won awards and so on, that's fine, and you can put all that on too. But everybody seems to have won an award from somebody. Everybody's got 5 stars from somebody, and by the time whoever gave it the award is in the tiniest text, it looks like the small print on a mobile phone advert. It can create mistrust. So I would say make key information prominent. Less information is more. People shouldn't be struggling to read it, but if the image draws them in, and then the title of the show is also evocative of what kind of show this is, and if it's a bit of a weird title, then you've absolutely got a one sentence, very short, that says what this is. New writing, a new comedy, a brand new thriller, fusing film and horror, you know, just really clear for what it is. But also, if that's too narrow, it will automatically exclude people that aren't in that category. So if you're thinking, well, actually this is a horror, but it's also new writing and it's also a play, make sure that's really, really clear. And it might be better to say a disturbing play rather than a dark cyber horror or something like that. So the more you are putting energy into needing really to have a conversation with yourself about what this really is, you're cutting off a conversation via your fly with people wanting to take it and put it away, and maybe find it later and book a ticket for it. So people get flyering wrong really at the basics, but I think the best thing now is to have a very clear, unique, intriguing image that clarifies rather than confuses that we've got a congruence between the flyer image and other forms of media, and also that the genre is really, really clear, and what we call the provenance, if it's got recent reviews, that's really clear, and have pull quotes that are just clear, not too long, not just star ratings on their own splashed all over it, because everybody's got stars from somebody. You'll be welcome to come to any of our workshops here at Fringe Review during the Fringe. They're always free, but mostly get your flyer right, and hopefully you're watching this before it's too late.